What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about SoFi, I want to go over some of the data points, what shorts did, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi went down 0.6% today, 1287 the low, 1347 the high. So you did have quite the back and forth today, not just with SoFi, but pretty much across the board. A lot of people are just waiting on the edge of their seats for China, and so negotiations are going to be commencing tomorrow. So a lot of people are somewhat worried. So you had some last minute selling and whatever else. You also did have, which caused a nice push higher, some optimistic kind of points that was brought up by Navarro as well as Trump about EU and Japan tariffs. So that might be coming down the pipeline as far as those deals in the next couple of weeks. So that would be a big one because market cares ultimately about Europe and China as the primary. Everyone else, in my opinion at least, is kind of secondary. But that's what caused a lot of the back and forth. I do see a lot of individuals kind of saying that this right here, this downtrend, was just shorts. And I just wanted to kind of clear it, saying it wasn't. Shorts did return 2.07 million shares. 13.5% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 146.62 million shares overall are being shorted. Even looking at this teal line right here, they didn't really do jack all. They kind of just they just returned early on in the day, and then they just kind of sat, and so they didn't really do all that much. It was though these entities, so there was a string of selling right here. This combined with a lot of the abnormal clearly selling, because when it comes down to the dark pool, you actually, for face value, can't see what is buys and sells, only because it doesn't show the bid and the ask. But you can kind of tell based on the price what it actually sold for and kind of look at the overall trend. So roughly around that $9 range, or 9 o'clock and 9:30, you did have a lot of selling on the dark pool as well as a couple on the secondary market. So for whatever reason, that is kind of what caused it to go down. And then you had some big kind of buys right here that started to really push it back higher once again. So it was institutions that was the culprit on what kickstarted all of this. Wasn't necessarily shorts, although it could be market makers, because as I've kind of expressed in the past, market makers do have a financial interest to ensure that, for instance, SoFi closes below key strike prices. And going with today being Friday, you can kind of see right here that it is 28,000 at that 1350. So the manipulation might have been coming from just institutions selling, market makers selling, rather than shorts. Normally that's not the case with SoFi, so it's kind of an odd day. So I do get why a lot of people on social media are saying that this was just shorts, but yeah, I don't know. Let me know your general thoughts. But all in all, today there was no news from SoFi, no SEC filings or anything along those lines. So it was kind of just piggybacking off the broader market. But over and above that, though, there actually hasn't been any new ratings since their earnings. So 9 days ago. So again, I always monitor this just to see if maybe there was some new analyst ratings creeping up and whatever else. And then there was no real substantial even articles coming out about SoFi. So a lot of which have been coming out on like May the 7th and the 8th, but nothing recent as of today. So simply it was just piggybacking off the broader market. 12 million in calls, 3.27 in puts, so kind of in line dollar value with what it has been. 44% of all the options being done today though were bullish in nature, so definitely good to see. And like I said, kind of in line, so 14.9 today, 15.7 yesterday, and then 12 and blah blah blah. So I think all in all pretty good stuff. Put/call ratio is still fairly low, so meaning you might see a little bit of a push for that. But based on the volume from today, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $13 to $14 range going into next week. So you do see a certain level of optimism still. Bears are starting to really ramp up, and I'm not really sure exactly why. So there was some puts that was purchased at the 950 and also 1050 strike prices for next week. So there is a certain level of individuals really betting that the whole negotiations between the States and China is going to fall through. And obviously, if that is publicly announced or whatever, then anticipate a little bit of a pullback. So I think just market has very high expectations for that. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But nonetheless, though, this open interest right here. So with it, even though it did get dragged down, you have 17,000 at that 13, 5,000 at the 1250, 3,000 at that 12. So that still could give a nice little bump up come Monday, but stay tuned for my video over the weekend. I'll go over all the expectations for this upcoming week and everything that you need to know. But with it at 13.18, smack dab in the middle between this R1 and the pivot. So 14.13 is going to be the next strong target. Then 11.87 is going to be the next strong support. And then aside from all that fun stuff, it is still smack dab between that 50 and 100 day moving average. Luckily enough, still did stay above the ALMA, so it's not down and out. A lot of people, I think, just somehow for whatever reason just became very bearish on SoFi today, but I think that's just because SoFi, I don't know, I think a lot of that volatility that happens on a intraday level really does get to a lot of long-term investors. So if you are believing in any stock, even aside from SoFi, sometimes it's better just to kind of turn off the noise. Don't pay attention, just trust your gut. If you feel SoFi is going to do a lot of big things, then again, just trust your gut. If you look at the day by day, it can really screw with some people's heads. So again, you obviously have to learn what type of investor you are and do what is best for yourself, because sometimes when the market is really showing that it's going to break out, even in the pre-market, and once the market opens and these kind of pullbacks, they can really mess with your psyche. But nonetheless, I think SoFi is definitely not down and out based on the technicals, still fairly good. A lot of key levels of support are right below where SoFi is at. So you have the 50-day moving average at 1208, that 200 also at 1189. So I think things are still looking pretty good. Over the last week for SoFi, it did close, it looks like 3.86% in the green. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Did you buy? Did you sell? What have you been doing with SoFi? So give yourself a shout out in the comments. And then one final thing, pop over to my Discord. It is completely free. A lot of good people talking about stocks, options, crypto, everything that you ever need in life. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.